The text was meant for her brother. Just $50 to get through one more night, but Nia's trembling fingers hit the wrong number, and the message landed in the hands of a billionaire instead. What happened next would tear open corporate secrets worth millions, drag her name through courtroom hell, and force her to choose between silent survival and dangerous truth. They said she was a gold digger. They said he was her accomplice. They were both wrong. This is the story of how one desperate text message became a declaration of war, and how two strangers refused to back down. If you're watching from your city tonight, drop a comment below and hit that like button. I want to see how far this story travels. The rain came down in sheets across Detroit, turning the cracked sidewalks into rivers of gray water that pooled around storm drains clogged with garbage and leaves. Inside a third-floor walk-up on LeMay Street, Nia Brooks stood at her kitchen window watching the storm tear through the neighborhood, her reflection ghostly in the rain-streaked glass. 28 years old, beautiful in a way that made people do double takes. High cheekbones, dark brown skin that glowed even under the apartment's failing fluorescent light, natural hair pulled back in a hasty bun. But tonight, beauty felt like currency she couldn't spend. Behind her, 6-month-old Marcus squirmed in his second-hand bouncer, making the hungry sounds that preceded a full-blown cry. Nia turned from the window and crouched beside him, running her finger along his soft cheek. "I know, baby," she whispered. "I know you're hungry." She straightened and opened the cabinet above the sink. One can of formula remained, the generic brand she'd switched to 3 weeks ago, when the name brand became impossible to afford. She'd been rationing it, watering it down just slightly. Not enough to hurt him, she told herself, just enough to make it last. The pediatrician would have been horrified. Nia was horrified, but horror didn't fill a bottle. The fridge offered even less hope. Half a carton of eggs, a quarter-gallon of milk that would expire tomorrow, some wilted lettuce, and a jar of grape jelly with maybe 2 tablespoons left. Her own stomach had been growling since noon. She'd given Marcus the last of yesterday's batch and told herself she'd eat after her shift. That shift had been a disaster. Another double at the diner that ended with her manager shorting her cash tips and blaming accounting errors. $43 instead of the 70 she'd counted. When she'd pushed back, he'd shrugged and suggested she was remembering wrong. She couldn't afford to push harder. She couldn't afford to lose the job. Nia returned to the window, phone in hand, and pulled up her brother's contact. Terrence, 2 years younger, living in Atlanta now, working some tech job she didn't fully understand, but that paid well enough for him to send photos of his new apartment with exposed brick and stainless steel appliances. They'd grown up in the same house on the east side, raised by the same grandmother who'd worked herself into an early grave to keep them fed. Different paths, different outcomes. Her thumb hovered over his name. Pride was a heavy thing. It sat in her chest like a stone, making it hard to breathe. She'd always been the responsible one, the older sister who had her life together, who'd gone to college on a partial scholarship and graduated summa cum laude with a degree in data analytics. That diploma was still in a frame somewhere in her bedroom closet, gathering dust beneath a pile of Marcus's outgrown onesies. 3 years ago, she'd been on track for a junior analyst position at a consulting firm downtown. Good salary, benefits, a future. Then she'd met Darren at a friend's birthday party. Handsome, charming, full of big promises about the life they'd build together. She'd ignored the red flags, the way he'd ghost for days, the stories that never quite added up, the friends who looked at her with pity when she wasn't looking. When she'd gotten pregnant, he'd stayed just long enough to watch her belly swell, then vanished the week before Marcus was born. No forwarding address, no child support, no apology, just gone. The consulting firm had been understanding at first, even offered maternity leave, but 6 months became 8, then 10, and the position was quietly filled by someone else. Someone without a baby. Someone who could work late without worrying about daycare pickups. When Nia finally reached out about returning, the HR director had been polite but firm. "We'll keep your resume on file." Now here she was, serving pancakes and coffee to truck drivers at a 24-hour diner, coming home to an apartment where the heat only worked half the time and the landlord ignored her calls about the black mold creeping up the bathroom wall. Marcus's fussing escalated into crying. "Okay," Nia said aloud, more to herself than to him. "Okay." She opened the text thread with Terrence. Their last conversation had been 2 months ago, him sending a gif of a dancing baby, her responding with a photo of Marcus in his Halloween costume, a tiny pumpkin. Light, easy, nothing about struggle or need. Her fingers moved across the screen. Nia. Hey T. I hate to ask, but I'm in a tight spot. Baby needs formula and I'm short until Friday. Can you spare $50? I'll pay you back. She read it 3 times before hitting send. The shame burned hot in her throat, but Marcus's cries overrode everything else. She watched the message deliver, watched the 3 little dots appear, then disappear. Appear again. Seconds ticked by. Then a response came through, but it wasn't from Terrence. Unknown. I think you have the wrong number, but is your baby okay? Nia's stomach dropped. She looked at the contact name she'd selected. The number was different, 1 digit off. In her exhaustion and anxiety, she'd scrolled to the wrong contact, a number that must have been in her phone from some automated text or misdial she'd never deleted. Heat flooded her face. She quickly typed back. Nia. I'm so sorry, wrong number. Please, disregard. She closed the thread and found Terrence's actual contact, but before she could type the message again, another text came through from the stranger. Unknown. No need to apologize. Is your baby okay, though? Do you need help? Nia stared at the screen. Who asks that? Who responds to a wrong number plea for money with genuine concern instead of annoyance or silence? She should have ignored it, should have blocked the number and moved on. But something in the tone of those 2 sentences, the absence of judgment, the simple directness, made her fingers move. Nia. He's fine, just low on formula. It's not your problem. Again, sorry for bothering you. The reply came almost instantly. Unknown. It's not a bother. How much do you need? Nia's breath caught. This had to be a scam, or a creep. Nobody offered money to strangers without an angle. Nia. I appreciate it, but I'm not comfortable accepting help from someone I don't know. Thanks anyway. Unknown. Understandable. But if you change your mind, the offer stands. No strings. She set the phone down on the counter and turned back to Marcus, lifting him from the bouncer. His little face was red from crying, tears streaking down his cheeks. She kissed his forehead and carried him to the couch, settling him against her chest. His crying softened into hiccups. We're okay, she whispered into his soft hair. We're going to be okay. But even as she said it, her eyes drifted back to the phone on the counter. The rational part of her brain screamed warnings. The desperate part whispered, what if? She picked up the phone again. Nia. Why would you help someone you don't know? The response took longer this time. She imagined the stranger on the other end weighing their words. Unknown. Because someone should have helped me once, and no one did. Nia read the message 3 times. There was pain in those words. Real pain. Not performative charity or pity. Something raw and unfinished. Nia. I'm not a charity case. Unknown. Didn't say you were. You asked for $50 to feed your kid. That's not charity. That's survival. Her throat tightened. She glanced down at Marcus, now drowsy against her chest, his tiny fist curled around the fabric of her shirt. Nia. If I send you my payment handle, this isn't, I don't know, weird, right? Unknown. Only if you think it's weird. I think it's just help. Nia closed her eyes. Every instinct told her to walk away. She'd been burned before, trusted people who'd turned out to be users, manipulators, liars. But this wasn't trust. This was need, and need had a way of silencing instincts. She opened her payment app, copied her handle, and pasted it into the text thread. Her thumb hovered over the send button for 5 long seconds before she finally pressed it. Nia Brooks, 2896. Unknown. Got it. Check your account in a minute. She switched over to the payment app and stared at the screen. The balance sat at $11.43. 60 seconds passed. Then her phone buzzed. The screen refreshed. Her balance now read $10,011.43. Nia's vision blurred. She blinked hard, certain she'd misread. But the number didn't change. $10,000. Not 50. 10,000. Her hand started shaking so badly she almost dropped the phone. Marcus stirred against her chest, sensing her sudden tension, and she forced herself to take a slow breath. Nia. This has to be a mistake. You sent way too much. Unknown. Not a mistake. Nia. I can't accept this. This is insane. Unknown. You can and you will buy what your baby needs.
Take care of yourself. That's it.
Nia stood up, pacing the small living room with Marcus still in her arms. Her mind raced through possibilities. This was a hack, a scam. Someone would show up at her door tomorrow demanding repayment with interest. Or worse. Nia, who are you? Unknown. Does it matter? Nia, yes, it matters. People don't just hand out $10,000 for no reason. Unknown. I have my reasons. They're mine. Use the money. Please. She stopped pacing. Marcus had fallen asleep, his breath warm and steady against her collarbone. Outside, the rain continued its relentless drumming against the windows. Somewhere in the building, a door slammed. A dog barked. Life moved forward, indifferent to miracles or disasters. Nia sank back onto the couch, staring at the phone screen until her eyes burned. Nia, thank you. I don't know what else to say. Unknown. You don't have to say anything. 300 miles away in Chicago, Logan Pierce sat in the leather chair behind his desk on the 52nd floor of Pierce Biotech Tower, the city sprawling beneath him in a grid of lights and shadows. At 33, he'd built an empire from a single patent and a ruthless work ethic that had cost him almost everything else. The office was silent except for the faint hum of the climate control system and the occasional ping of emails arriving in his inbox. He set his phone down and leaned back, staring at the ceiling. The transfer had cleared. $10,000, gone in seconds. A rounding error in his personal account. But the girl, Nia, according to her payment handle, had hesitated, questioned, resisted. Most people didn't do that. Most people saw money and grabbed. He'd meant to send 50. That would have been reasonable, proportional. But his finger had hovered over the amount field, and something inside him had cracked open. A memory, sharp and unbidden. His younger sister Lily, 19 years old, calling him from a gas station outside Terre Haute. She'd been crying so hard he could barely understand her. I ran out of money, she'd sobbed. I don't know what to do. I need help. He'd been in back-to-back investor meetings that day, preparing for the IPO that would make him a billionaire by 28. He told her to call their parents, told her he'd send money later, told her he'd call back when he had a minute. He never got the chance. She'd been found 3 days later in a motel room, dead from an overdose. The coroner's report said she'd been using for months. Logan hadn't known, hadn't asked, hadn't made time. That was 5 years ago. The guilt hadn't faded. If anything, it had calcified, become part of his architecture. He donated millions to addiction recovery programs, funded housing initiatives, wrote checks to every cause that asked, but none of it brought her back. None of it answered the question that haunted him in the dark. What if I'd just picked up the phone? Tonight, a stranger had reached out in desperation, and he'd answered. It didn't fix anything, didn't erase Lily. But it was something. His phone buzzed again. Nia, can I ask you one more thing? Logan picked up the phone. Logan. Sure. Nia, why me? He considered lying, considered brushing it off. But something about her earlier messages, the pride, the reluctance, the raw honesty, made him want to be honest in return. Logan. Because you reminded me of someone I lost, and because I can. The 3 dots appeared, then disappeared, appeared again. Nia, I'm sorry for your loss. Logan. Me too. He thought that would be the end of it. A brief intersection, a moment of grace, then nothing. Ships passing. But an hour later, another message came through. Nia, I bought the formula and diapers. And groceries. There's still so much left. I don't know what to do with it. Logan. Save it. Use it when you need it. That's what it's for. Nia. This doesn't feel real. Logan. It is. I promise. He hesitated, then added, What's your baby's name? Nia. Marcus. 6 months old. Logan. Good name. Nia. Thank you for everything. Logan. You're welcome, Nia. He realized, after he sent it, that he'd used her name. She hadn't given it in the texts, he'd pulled it from the payment handle. That might have seemed invasive, strange, But she didn't call him on it. Maybe she was too tired. Maybe she didn't care. Or maybe, like him, she was just relieved not to be alone in the dark for a few minutes. The next morning, Nia woke to sunlight streaming through the thin curtains and Marcus babbling happily in his crib. For a disorienting moment, she thought the previous night had been a dream. Then she checked her phone. The payment app still showed $9,847.82. She'd spent over $100 at the 24-hour grocery store after putting Marcus to bed. Formula, diapers, wipes, real food, including fresh fruit she hadn't tasted in weeks. The cashier had given her a strange look when she'd paid, probably wondering how someone in a threadbare coat and scuffed sneakers had that much in their account. Nia didn't care. She'd walked out of that store with her head high, bags in both hands, and cried in the car for 10 minutes before driving home. Now, in the gentler light of morning, reality crept back in. She still had a shift at the diner in 3 hours. Still had rent due in 2 weeks. Still had a life that $10,000 could ease but not fundamentally change. Her phone buzzed. A text from the unknown number. Unknown. Morning? How's Marcus? She smiled despite herself. Nia. Good. Fed and happy. How are you? Unknown. Better now. Listen, I know this is going to sound strange, but can I send you something? Her guard went up immediately. Nia. Like what? Unknown. Supplies. For Marcus. I have a connection with a baby brand, high-quality stuff. If you're comfortable giving me a shipping address, I'll have it sent over. Nia. You've already done too much. Unknown. Humor me. She bit her lip. Supplies. Not money this time, tangible things she could actually use. And if he turned out to be some kind of stalker, well, she'd deal with it. She'd dealt with worse. Nia. Okay, but nothing crazy. Unknown. Define crazy. Nia. You know what I mean. She sent her address, apartment number included. A tiny leap of faith. Or stupidity. Time would tell. Unknown. Got it. Should arrive tomorrow. Nia. Thank you. Again. Unknown. Stop thanking me. Nia. Can't help it. I was raised right. Unknown. I can tell. She set the phone down and got Marcus ready for the day, her mind spinning. Who was this person? Wealthy, clearly. Generous to the point of recklessness. Haunted by something. That much was obvious from his message about loss. Part of her wanted to dig deeper, to ask questions, to understand. Another part wanted to just accept the gift and move on, not complicate it with curiosity or attachment. But curiosity was winning. The package arrived the next afternoon while Nia was at work. Her neighbor, Mrs. Alvarez, signed for it and texted her a photo. It was huge, bigger than any delivery Nia had ever received. She raced home after her shift, nearly tripping over her own feet as she climbed the stairs. Mrs. Alvarez had left it outside her door. Nia dragged it inside, her heart pounding. Inside the box, premium organic formula, 6 containers, diapers in 3 sizes, enough to last months, wipes, lotions, baby wash that smelled like lavender and cost more than her weekly grocery budget, a set of soft cotton onesies in muted blues and greens, and at the bottom, wrapped in tissue paper, a hand-knit blanket in cream and gray, with Marcus's name embroidered in small, elegant script along the edge. Nia lifted the blanket and pressed it to her face. It was the softest thing she'd ever touched. She took a photo and sent it to the unknown number. Nia, you said nothing crazy. This is crazy. This is beautiful. Thank you. Unknown. I'm glad you like it. The blanket was custom. I hope I spelled his name right. Nia. You did. It's perfect. She sat on the floor surrounded by the supplies, Marcus on her lap, running his tiny hands over the fabric of the blanket. For the first time in months, maybe years, Nia felt something other than exhaustion or fear. She felt hope. Nia, can I know your name? I feel like I should at least know who I'm talking to. There was a long pause. She watched the screen, wondering if she'd pushed too far. Then, unknown, Logan. My name is Logan. Nia. Hi, Logan. I'm Nia, but I guess you already knew that. Logan. Hi, Nia. Nia. Why are you doing this? Logan. Honestly, I'm not sure. It just feels right. Nia. You're either the kindest person I've ever met or completely insane. Logan. Could be both. She laughed, actually laughed, the sound startling Marcus, who looked up at her with wide eyes. Nia. Where are you, Logan? Logan. Chicago. You? Nia. Detroit. Logan. Long way apart. Nia. Yeah. Logan. Does that bother you? Nia. Should it? Logan. I don't know. I'm new at this. Nia. At what? Logan. Talking to someone without an agenda. Nia's chest tightened. She understood that. Understood it bone deep. Nia. Me too. They texted through the evening. Small things at first. Favorite foods, worst jobs, childhood memories. Logan told her about growing up in Indianapolis, his parents' messy divorce, his decision to skip law school and start a company instead. He was careful, she noticed, not to mention specifics about wealth or status, just a person. Talking. Nia told him about her grandmother, about college, about the consulting job that got away. She didn't mention Darren. Not yet. Some wounds were too fresh to share with a stranger, even a kind one. Logan. What would you do if you could go back to that career? Nia. I don't know. It feels impossible now. I've got Marcus. Can't exactly work 60-hour weeks anymore. Logan. What if you didn't have to? What if there was a way to do both? Nia. I'd love to believe that. But the world doesn't work that way. Not for people like me. Logan. What if I told you it could? She frowned at the screen. Nia. What do you mean? Logan. I run a company. We're always looking for smart people. Data analytics, you said. Nia. Logan. No. Absolutely not. Logan. Why not? Nia. Because this is already too much. Because I can't take a job from you like some kind of charity hire. Logan. It wouldn't be charity. It would be business. If you're good, I need you. If you're not, I don't. Simple. Nia. Nothing about this is simple. Logan. Fair. But think about it. Nia. I don't even know what your company does. Logan. Biotech, medical research, drug development, some AI integration. We analyze massive data sets for clinical trials. Nia's breath caught. That was exactly her field. Before Marcus, she'd specialized in predictive modeling for healthcare outcomes. Nia. You're serious? Logan. Completely. Nia. I'd have to bring Marcus. I don't have childcare. Logan. We'll set up a nursery, on site. Professional staff? Nia. That's insane. Logan. So you keep saying. Nia. Logan. I don't even have a recent resume. I've been out of the field for over a year. Logan. Send me what you have. I'll take care of the rest. She stared at the screen until her vision blurred. This was madness. This was a fairy tale. This didn't happen in real life. But then again, neither did $10,000 from a wrong number. Nia. Okay, I'll send it, but no promises. Logan. No promises. Just a chance. Nia sent her resume that night. Outdated, sparse, but solid. Logan responded within an hour. Logan. You're overqualified for half the positions we're hiring for. When can you come to Chicago? Nia. I can't just drop everything and fly to Chicago. Logan. Why not? Nia. Because I have a job, and a baby, and a life here. Logan. Bring Marcus. I'll cover travel. One day. In and out. Interview, tour the facility, meet the team. If you hate it, you go home. If you don't, we talk next steps. Nia. This is crazy. Logan. You've said that a lot. Nia. Because it keeps being true. Logan. Is that a yes? Nia looked down at Marcus, asleep in the bassinet beside her bed. She thought about the diner, the grease-stained aprons, the manager who shorted her tips. She thought about the apartment with the mold and the broken heat. She thought about the life she'd imagined for herself once, before everything fell apart. Nia. When? Logan. This Friday. Nia. That's 3 days from now. Logan. I know. Nia. You don't waste time, do you? Logan. Not anymore. Nia. Okay. Friday. Logan. I'll send you the details. And Nia? Nia. Yeah? Logan, thank you for trusting me. She didn't respond right away. Trust was a big word. Trust was dangerous, but maybe, just maybe, it was also necessary. Nia, don't make me regret it. Logan, I won't. It. Friday came faster than Nia expected. She'd requested the day off from the diner. Her manager had been annoyed but couldn't legally refuse. She'd spent the night before washing and pressing her one good blouse, the black one she'd worn to job interviews years ago. It still fit, barely. She paired it with slacks and the nicest flats she owned, then stood in front of the bathroom mirror trying to convince herself she looked professional instead of desperate. Marcus, oblivious to the weight of the day, gurgled happily in his carrier. The flight was surreal. First class. Logan had insisted, and Nia hadn't fought him on it. She'd never flown first class in her life. The seat reclined into a bed. They brought her warm towels and real silverware. Marcus slept most of the way, lulled by the engine hum. A car met her at O'Hare, a sleek black sedan with a driver who knew her name. He loaded her bag, helped her secure Marcus's carrier, and drove her into the city without a word. The skyline rose around her, steel and glass catching the afternoon sun. Pierce Biotech Tower stood downtown, a gleaming 55-story monument to ambition. Nia craned her neck to see the top as the car pulled up to the entrance. "Ms. Brooks," the driver said, turning to face her. "Mr. Pierce is waiting for you on the 52nd floor. Security will escort you up." Nia's mouth went dry. "Mr. Pierce?" "Yes, ma'am." Logan Pierce. She'd Googled him, of course. Billionaire, genius, CEO, 33 years old with a net worth that made her head spin. The man who'd sent her $10,000 on a whim was one of the richest people in the country, and she was about to meet him. "Right," she said faintly. "Okay." Security was polite but thorough. They scanned her ID, checked her bag, and gave Marcus a cursory glance before waving her through. A woman in a crisp blazer led her to a private elevator, swiped a keycard, and pressed the button for 52. "Good luck," the woman said with a small smile. The elevator rose so smoothly Nia barely felt it move. Her reflection stared back at her from the polished walls, a young black woman in cheap clothes holding a baby, completely out of place in this temple of wealth and power. The doors opened, and there he was. Logan Pierce stood in the center of a massive office, hands in the pockets of his tailored slacks, white shirt rolled to the elbows. He was tall, easily 6'2", with dark blonde hair that looked like he'd run his hands through it too many times, sharp blue eyes, and a jawline that belonged on a magazine cover. He looked every inch the billionaire, but when he smiled, it softened his whole face. "Nia," he said, and his voice was warm, familiar. "It's good to finally meet you." She stepped off the elevator, legs shaking. "Hi." He crossed the distance between them, hand extended. She shifted Marcus's carrier to her left arm and shook. His grip was firm but not aggressive. "And this must be Marcus." Logan crouched slightly to look at the baby, who stared back with wide, curious eyes. "Hey, buddy." Marcus kicked his legs. Logan straightened, smile widening. "He's perfect." "Thank you," Nia managed. "And thank you for all of this. The flight, the car, everything." "It's nothing." He gestured toward the seating area near the floor-to-ceiling windows. "Come on, let's talk." They sat across from each other, the city sprawling beneath them. Nia set Marcus's carrier on the floor beside her chair, and the baby immediately started gnawing on a teething ring. "So," Logan said, leaning forward, elbows on his knees, "I read your resume twice. You're exactly what we need." "I haven't worked in over a year," Nia said. "I'm rusty." "Rusty implies you forgot how, did you?" "No." "Then you're not rusty. You're ready." She shook her head, smiling despite herself. "You're very confident." "I have to be. I built this company on confidence and caffeine." He paused. "Look, I'm not going to pretend this isn't unconventional. It is. But I need someone who can look at data and see patterns nobody else sees. Someone who asks the right questions. And from what I saw in your work samples, that's you." "You saw work samples? You attached them to your resume. Those were from college. And they were brilliant. So imagine what you can do now." Nia's chest tightened. No one had called her brilliant in a long time. "What's the position?" she asked. Data analyst, but with room to move up. You'd be working directly with our R&D team, parsing clinical trial data, identifying trends, flagging anomalies. It's high-level work, challenging, but I think you'd love it. And Marcus? Logan stood and walked to the far side of the office, pressing a button on the wall. A panel slid open, revealing a connected room bathed in soft light. Inside, a crib, a changing table, shelves stocked with supplies, toys, and a rocking chair by the window. Nia's breath caught. "I had this set up yesterday," Logan said quietly. "If you take the job, he's with you, always. We'll hire a nanny to help during work hours, but he's yours. Your call." She stood and walked to the doorway, staring into the nursery. It was more than she'd ever dreamed of giving Marcus, more than she'd thought possible. "Why?" she whispered. Logan came to stand beside her. "Because you deserve it, and because no one should have to choose between their career and their kid." Nia turned to face him, tears burning her eyes. "You don't even know me. I know enough." They stood there in silence, the weight of the moment settling between them. Finally, Nia spoke. "Okay." Logan's eyebrows lifted. "Okay? Okay, I'll take the job." His grin was instant, boyish, genuine. "Yeah? Yeah." She laughed, shaky and disbelieving. "Yeah, let's do this." "Good," Logan said. He extended his hand again, and she shook it. "Welcome to Pierce Biotech, Nia Brooks." As they stood there, hands clasped, Marcus let out a happy shriek from his carrier. And for the first time in longer than she could remember, Nia believed everything might actually be okay. Nia's first day at Pierce Biotech started at 7 in the morning on a Tuesday that felt like stepping into someone else's life. She'd moved to Chicago over the weekend. Logan had arranged everything, from the apartment lease to the moving truck that hauled her meager belongings across state lines. The new place was in Lincoln Park, a renovated brownstone with actual heat, windows that locked properly, and a kitchen where all the appliances worked. Marcus had his own room painted soft yellow, with the custom blanket draped over the crib railing. She'd cried when she first walked in, not sad tears, overwhelmed ones, the kind that came when the weight you'd been carrying finally lifted and you realized how heavy it had been all along. Now she stood in the lobby of Pierce Biotech Tower, Marcus strapped to her chest in his carrier, her badge clipped to her blazer. The security guard who'd checked her in had smiled warmly and said, "Welcome aboard, Ms. Brooks," like she belonged here, like this was normal. The elevator took her to the 34th floor, where the data analytics department sprawled across an open floor plan filled with standing desks, ergonomic chairs, and enough monitors to rival a NASA control room. Heads turned as she stepped off the elevator. Some curious, some surprised, a few indifferent. A woman in her 40s approached, hand extended, red hair pulled into a sleek ponytail. "Nia Brooks? I'm Jennifer Hastings, department head. We've been expecting you." Nia shook her hand, hyper-aware of Marcus's weight against her chest. "Thank you. It's good to be here." Jennifer's gaze dropped to Marcus, and her expression softened. "And this must be the VIP who got his own nursery. He's adorable." "Thank you. I hope it's okay that I brought him down first. I wanted to meet everyone before—" "It's more than okay. Logan was very clear that you and Marcus are a package deal." Jennifer gestured toward the far corner of the floor. "Your workspace is over here. We've got you set up near the windows, best light in the building." Nia followed her through the maze of desks, nodding politely at the faces that watched her pass. Her new workspace was everything Jennifer promised. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, a standing desk with dual monitors, and a small adjoining office that connected directly to the nursery Logan had shown her upstairs. The door was open, revealing the same peaceful space she'd seen during her interview, now stocked with fresh supplies and a nanny already waiting inside. The nanny stood when she saw them, a kind-faced woman in her 50s with silver-streaked hair. "Good morning. I'm Margaret. You must be Nia." "I am. And this is Marcus." Nia hesitated, then unstrapped the carrier and lifted Marcus out. He'd been fussing slightly, ready for his mid-morning nap. Margaret reached out, movements slow and practiced. "May I?" Nia handed him over, watching as Margaret cradled him with the ease of someone who'd done this 1,000 times. Marcus settled immediately, his head tucking against her shoulder. He's comfortable with you, Nia said, relief washing through her. Babies know, Margaret said simply. I'll take good care of him. You focus on your work. If he needs you, I'll come get you immediately. Nia nodded, throat tight. Leaving him felt wrong even though he was 20 feet away. But Margaret's calm presence and Marcus's contented sigh made it easier. Jennifer was waiting by the desk when Nia returned. Whenever you're ready, we'll get you logged into the system. No rush. I'm ready now. The next 2 hours passed in a blur of passwords, software tutorials, and introductions to the rest of the team. There were 8 analysts total, most of them younger than Nia, fresh out of grad school with degrees from places like MIT and Stanford. They were polite but reserved, clearly trying to figure out where she fit in the hierarchy. Nia didn't blame them. She was trying to figure out the same thing. By late morning, Jennifer dropped a project file on her desk. Start with this. It's a data set from our most recent Phase 2 trial, cardiac drug, testing efficacy across diverse populations. We need someone to review the statistical models and flag any inconsistencies. Nia opened the file. Thousands of rows of data, patient demographics, dosage information, outcome measurements. It was exactly the kind of work she used to love. How soon do you need it? End of the week, but if you spot anything urgent, flag it immediately. Nia nodded and dove in. The rest of the office noise faded. Numbers became patterns, patterns became stories, and for the first time in over a year, Nia felt her mind stretch and sharpen the way it used to. She barely noticed when Margaret brought Marcus out for a feeding, barely registered the lunch break that came and went. She was 3 layers deep into the data when a voice broke her concentration. You're in the zone. Nia looked up. Logan stood beside her desk, hands in his pockets, that same easy smile on his face. He was dressed more casually today, dark jeans, a gray sweater that probably cost more than her entire wardrobe. Sorry, she said quickly. I didn't hear you come up. Don't apologize. That's exactly what I want to see. He glanced at her monitors. Finding anything interesting? Maybe. There's a discrepancy in the placebo group's reporting intervals. Some patients have data logged every 2 weeks, others every 4. It's skewing the comparison metrics. Logan's eyebrows lifted. You found that in 3 hours? It jumped out once I sorted by timestamp. Jennifer's been looking at this data for a month. Nia's stomach tightened. I'm not trying to step on anyone's toes. You're not. You're doing your job. He pulled up a chair and sat beside her. Show me. She walked him through it, pointing out the irregularities, the potential impact on the trial's conclusions. Logan listened without interrupting, his focus complete. When she finished, he leaned back and ran a hand through his hair. This could have tanked the entire trial if it went to the FDA review. I'm sure someone would have caught it eventually. Maybe. But you caught it today. He stood. Write up your findings and send them to Jennifer and me. I want this flagged to the research team by end of business. Okay. He started to walk away, then paused. Hey, Nia. Yeah? Thank you for being exactly as good as I thought you'd be. Heat crept up her neck. I'm just doing what you hired me for. I know. Keep it up. He left and Nia sat there for a moment, heart pounding in a way that had nothing to do with the data. She forced herself to focus and spent the next hour drafting a detailed report. By the time she hit send, it was nearly 5 o'clock. The office had started to empty out, analysts packing up their bags and heading for the elevators. Margaret appeared in the doorway, Marcus drowsy and milk-drunk in her arms. He's been an angel all day. Ate well, napped twice, barely fussed. Nia took him, pressing a kiss to his forehead. Thank you, Margaret, really. See you tomorrow. Margaret gathered her things and left, and Nia was alone in the quiet office with her son. She packed up slowly, savoring the strange new normal of it all, the good work, the supportive team, the knowledge that tomorrow she'd come back and do it again. The apartment felt different when she got home. Bigger, safer. She fed Marcus, gave him a bath in the actual bathtub that didn't have cracks or mold, and rocked him to sleep in the nursery that still smelled like fresh paint. Her phone buzzed as she was heading to bed. Logan, saw your report. Brilliant work. You just saved us 6 months of headaches. Nia, just glad I could help. Logan, more than help. You're already making a difference. Nia, it feels good to be useful again. Logan, You were always useful. Now people just get to see it. She smiled at the screen, then set the phone down and climbed into bed. Sleep came easier than it had in years. The rest of the week passed in a rhythm that felt almost normal. Nia arrived each morning at 7, settled Marcus with Margaret, and lost herself in data until evening. She flagged 2 more inconsistencies in different data sets, caught a coding error in one of the automated analysis scripts, and started building a predictive model for patient retention rates that Jennifer called game-changing. By Friday afternoon, she felt like she'd been there for months instead of days. That's when things started to shift. She was reviewing a budget reconciliation report. Not her usual work, but Jennifer had asked her to take a look since she had a knack for spotting patterns. The document was dense, hundreds of line items covering departmental expenses, vendor payments, equipment purchases. Nia's eyes glazed over halfway through the first page. Then something snagged her attention. A series of payments to a vendor called Apex Solutions. Small amounts, $3,000 here, $5,000 there, spread across multiple departments over 6 months. Nothing individually alarming, but the frequency was odd, and the descriptions were vague. Consulting services, administrative support, operational overhead. Nia pulled up the vendor database and searched for Apex Solutions. The company had been added to the system 8 months ago. Address listed in Delaware, a red flag in itself since Delaware was notorious for shell corporations. No website, no phone number, just a payment routing number. She cross-referenced the payments with project timelines. None of the departments that had paid Apex were running projects that required outside consulting during those periods. And the amounts, while small individually, added up to over $200,000. Nia sat back, pulse quickening. This could be nothing. A legitimate vendor with bad record keeping, or it could be something worse. She hesitated, then picked up her phone and texted Logan. Nia, are you available? I found something weird in the budget data. Logan, in my office. Come up. She saved her work, checked on Marcus, still napping peacefully, and took the elevator to 52. Logan's assistant waved her through, and she found him at his desk, tie loosened, looking like he'd been there since dawn. What have you got? He asked, gesturing to the chair across from him. Nia pulled up the data on her tablet and handed it over. Vendor payments, Apex Solutions. $200,000 over 6 months, spread thin enough that nobody noticed. Logan scrolled through the report, frown deepening. Who authorized these? That's the thing. They're all under the threshold that requires executive approval. Whoever set this up knew the system. You think it's fraud? I think it's worth investigating. Logan's jaw tightened. He picked up his desk phone and dialed a 4-digit extension. Carol, get me everything we have on a vendor called Apex Solutions. Payment history, contracts, contact information. I need it in an hour. He hung up and looked at Nia. Good catch. Could be nothing. Could be. But you don't think it is? No, she admitted. I don't. An hour later, Logan's assistant, Carol, returned with a thin folder. Logan spread the contents across his desk. The contract with Apex Solutions was bare bones, signed 8 months ago by someone in procurement. The services described were generic enough to be meaningless, and the contact information led to a virtual office in Wilmington. This is a shell, Logan said flatly. Looks like it. Who signed off on the contract? Carol leaned over and pointed to a signature at the bottom. Martin Voss. He's in procurement, but he reports up to the CFO's office. Logan's expression went cold. Richard Gaines. Nia didn't know the name, but Logan's tone told her everything she needed to know. You think the CFO is involved? She asked carefully. I think Richard's been acting strange for months. Defensive about budget questions, resistant to audits. Logan ran a hand over his face. If he's skimming, this is how he'd do it. Small, dispersed, under the radar. What do we do? We investigate quietly. I'll bring in external auditors, have them trace the payments. But we don't make noise until we're sure. He looked at her. Are you okay with that? Of course. But Logan, if this gets out, it won't. Not until we have proof. Nia nodded, but unease settled in her chest. She'd just walked into something bigger than bad data, and she had no idea where it would lead. Over the next 2 weeks, the investigation unfolded in shadows. Logan brought in a forensic accounting firm under the guise of a routine audit. Nia worked with them after hours, pulling transaction records, cross-referencing vendor files, building a timeline. The more they dug, the clearer the picture became. Apex Solutions was a ghost. The payments had been routed through a series of offshore accounts before disappearing entirely, and every approval in the chain led back to one office, Richard Gaines, CFO. Nia had never met the man, but his reputation preceded him. 15 years at Pierce Biotech, a trusted lieutenant, Logan's right hand on the financial side. If he was dirty, the betrayal cut deep. Logan took the news like a punch to the gut. Nia was in his office when the auditors delivered their final report, watching his face drain of color as he read. "He's been stealing from me for almost a year," Logan said quietly. "$500,000, total." "I'm sorry." "Don't be. You found it. If you hadn't—" He stopped, shook his head. "I would have kept trusting him, and he would have kept stealing." "What happens now?" "I confront him, quietly. Give him a chance to explain. And if he doesn't," Logan's gaze hardened, "then I bury him." The confrontation happened 2 days later. Logan called Richard into his office at 8 in the morning before the rest of the executive team arrived. Nia wasn't there, but Logan told her about it afterward, his voice tight with controlled fury. Richard had denied everything at first, called the evidence circumstantial, suggested Nia had made mistakes in her analysis. When Logan pressed harder, Richard's denials turned defensive, then desperate. He claimed the payments were legitimate, that Nia was too new to understand how the business worked, that Logan was trusting the wrong people. "He tried to throw you under the bus," Logan said. "Said you were manipulating data to make yourself look good." Nia's stomach dropped. "What did you say?" "I told him to clean out his desk." "You fired him?" "Effective immediately. Severance contingent on him signing an NDA and returning every cent. If he refuses, I take it to the authorities." Nia exhaled slowly. "He's not going to take that well." "I don't care." But Richard Gaines didn't go quietly. By the end of the week, rumors started spreading through the office. Whispers about Nia, the new hire who'd somehow gotten a fast track to the top. Whispers about favoritism, about Logan making decisions based on something other than merit. Nia heard the talk in the break room, saw the looks from colleagues who used to be friendly. Jennifer pulled her aside one afternoon, voice low. "Ignore it. Richard's people are stirring the pot. It'll blow over." "What if it doesn't?" "Then you keep your head down and do the work. Let the results speak." Nia tried. But the whispers followed her. And then, 2 weeks after Richard's firing, the article dropped. It was published on a mid-tier business blog known for tabloid-style coverage of corporate drama. The headline screamed, "Pierce Biotech CEO's Mystery Woman, Romance or Favoritism?" The article was a hatchet job. It detailed Nia's sudden hiring, her lack of recent experience, the on-site nursery that no other employee had access to. It included photos, grainy shots of her entering the building with Marcus, leaving work with Logan one evening when he'd walked her to her car. The implication was clear. Nia wasn't qualified. She was there because Logan wanted her there, for reasons that had nothing to do with data analysis. Nia read the article 3 times, hands shaking, bile rising in her throat. The comments section was worse. Accusations, slurs, assumptions about what she'd done to earn her position. Her phone rang. "Logan." "Don't read the comments," he said immediately. "Too late. I'm handling this. My lawyers are already drafting a response." "Logan, they're calling me a—" "I know what they're calling you, and it's garbage. None of it's true. But people will believe it. Some will, most won't. The people who matter know the truth." "I don't know if I can do this." "Nia, listen to me." His voice was firm, grounding. "Richard did this. He's trying to discredit you because you exposed him. That's all this is." "It's working. Only if you let it." She closed her eyes, Marcus's soft breathing the only sound in the apartment. "What do I do?" "You come to work tomorrow. You do your job. You show everyone that you belong here. And if they don't believe me, then they're idiots, and we don't need them." Nia wanted to believe him, but belief felt fragile in the face of public humiliation. The next morning, walking into Pierce Biotech felt like walking into a firing squad. Eyes followed her across the lobby. Conversation stopped when she passed. She kept her head high, badge in hand, and took the elevator to 34. Jennifer was waiting at her desk. Nia, I'm fine, Nia said quickly. I'm here to work. Good, because we need you on the Jameson project. It's a mess, and you're the only one who can untangle it. Nia sat down, logged in, and buried herself in code. She didn't look up when people walked by, didn't engage with the stares or the whispers. She just worked. By mid-afternoon, she'd identified the root cause of the Jameson project's issues, a corrupted dataset that had been feeding bad information into the analysis pipeline for weeks. She documented everything, sent the report to Jennifer, and finally allowed herself to breathe. Her phone buzzed. Logan, how are you holding up? Nia, still standing. Logan, that's my girl. The phrase made her chest tighten in a way she didn't want to examine. Nia, they're going to keep coming after me, aren't they? Logan, probably, but I'll be right there with you. Nia, why? Logan, because you're worth it. She stared at the screen until her vision blurred, then set the phone down and got back to work. But the attacks didn't stop. Over the next week, more articles appeared. Anonymous sources claimed Nia had faked her credentials, that Logan had bypassed HR to hire her, that the nursery was proof of preferential treatment bordering on misconduct. The company's stock took a minor hit as investors questioned Logan's judgment. And through it all, Richard Gaines stayed silent, his severance agreement keeping him from speaking publicly. But his fingerprints were everywhere. Nia started having nightmares. Waking up in cold sweats, Marcus crying in the next room, the weight of it all crushing her lungs. She'd left Detroit to escape struggle. Instead, she'd walked into a different kind of war. Then the legal letter arrived. It was delivered to her apartment on a Thursday evening. Official stationery, corporate law firm, the kind that charged $1,000 an hour. Inside, a cease and desist, alleging that Nia had unlawfully accessed confidential company information and used it to defame Richard Gaines. The letter demanded she retract her findings and issue a public apology or face a lawsuit for defamation and breach of contract. Nia sat on the floor, letter trembling in her hands, and finally let herself cry. She didn't call Logan, didn't text, just sat there in the dark with Marcus asleep in the next room and wondered how everything had gone so wrong so fast. Her phone rang an hour later. Logan. She almost didn't answer. Nia, where are you? Home. I'm coming over. You don't have to. I'm already in the car. 20 minutes later, he was at her door. She opened it, eyes red, still holding the letter. Logan took one look at her face and stepped inside without asking. Show me, he said quietly. She handed him the letter. He read it twice, jaw tightening with each line. Then he pulled out his phone and made a call. David, it's Logan. I need you at Nia Brooks' apartment in Lincoln Park, now. Bring everything we have on the Gaines case. He hung up and looked at Nia. My lawyer. He'll be here in 30 minutes. Logan, I can't afford. You're not paying. I am. This isn't your fight. Yes, it is. He stepped closer, his voice low and fierce. You found the fraud because I asked you to. You're being attacked because you did the right thing. That makes it my fight. Nia's throat closed. I don't know if I can do this. You can, and you will, because you're stronger than Richard, stronger than the rumors, stronger than all of it. He hesitated, then reached out and took her hand. I'm not letting you go through this alone. The lawyer arrived with a briefcase full of documents. They sat at Nia's small kitchen table, going through everything, the audit reports, the vendor records, the timeline of payments. By midnight, they had a strategy. Ignore the cease and desist, file a countersuit for harassment and abusive process, and prepare for Richard to escalate. He's going to fight dirty, the lawyer warned. This won't be quick or easy. I don't care, Logan said. We end this. Nia looked between them, exhaustion pulling at her bones. What if we lose? Logan met her eyes. We won't. But even as he said it, Nia couldn't shake the feeling that the worst was still ahead. The countersuit was filed on a Friday morning, and by Friday afternoon, Richard Gaines' legal team responded with a motion to dismiss and a press release painting Nia as a disgruntled employee fabricating evidence to cover her own incompetence. The media picked it up instantly. By evening, her name was trending on social media, dissected by strangers who'd never met her, never seen her work, never bothered to ask if any of it was true. Nia stopped reading the comments after the first 100. They all said the same thing in different words. She was a liar, a opportunist, a woman who'd slept her way into a job she didn't deserve. Some were crueler, most were predictable. All of them hurt. She spent the weekend holed up in her apartment with Marcus, ignoring her phone except for Logan's messages. He texted every few hours, checking in, offering to bring food or just sit with her. She declined each time. She needed space to think, to breathe, to figure out if she was strong enough to keep fighting. Monday came too fast. Nia stood in front of her bathroom mirror at 6 in the morning, staring at her reflection. Dark circles under her eyes, hair pulled back in a bun that had seen better days. The same black blouse she'd worn to her interview, now paired with slacks that were starting to feel loose because she kept forgetting to eat. She looked tired, she looked scared, but she also looked like someone who'd survived worse. Marcus babbled from his crib, oblivious to the storm raging around them. Nia went to him, lifted him into her arms, and pressed her forehead against his. "We're gonna be okay, baby," she whispered. "I promise." She wasn't sure if she believed it, but she said it anyway. The elevator ride to the 34th floor felt longer than usual. When the doors opened, the floor was already buzzing with activity. Nia stepped out, chin up, and walked to her desk. A few people glanced her way. Most looked away quickly, uncomfortable or embarrassed or just unwilling to engage. Jennifer met her halfway, coffee in hand. "You came. Did you think I wouldn't?" "Honestly, I wasn't sure." Jennifer handed her the coffee. "Extra shot of espresso. You look like you need it." Nia took it gratefully. "Thanks. We've got a team meeting in 10. Logan's addressing the Richard situation." Nia's stomach tightened. "He's talking about it publicly?" "He has to. The rumors are out of control. People need to hear the truth from him directly." They gathered in the main conference room on the 34th floor, the entire analytics department plus a handful of executives. Logan stood at the head of the table, sleeves rolled up, looking like he hadn't slept much either. His gaze found Nia's across the room, and something in his expression steadied her. "Thanks for coming," Logan began, voice calm but firm. "I know the last few weeks have been chaotic, and I want to address the situation directly. Richard Gaines is no longer with this company. He was terminated after an internal investigation revealed financial misconduct. The investigation was thorough, conducted by external auditors, and the evidence is irrefutable." A hand went up. One of the junior analysts, a guy named Trevor, who Nia had barely spoken to. "Is it true that Nia Brooks was the one who found the fraud?" Logan didn't hesitate. "Yes." Nia identified irregularities in our vendor payment records that led to the discovery of a scheme involving fake vendors and embezzled funds. Her work likely saved this company millions of dollars and protected our reputation with investors and regulators. "Then why is she being accused of making it up?" Trevor pressed. "Because Richard Gaines is trying to deflect blame and discredit the person who exposed him. It's a common tactic. It's also baseless." Logan's gaze swept the room. "I want to be very clear. Nia Brooks was hired because she's brilliant at what she does. The accusations against her are false. The rumors are false. And anyone in this company who repeats them will answer to me directly." The room went silent. Nia felt every pair of eyes turned toward her. Heat crept up her neck, but she held Logan's gaze and nodded slightly. "Any other questions?" Logan asked. No one spoke. "Good. Get back to work." The meeting dispersed. Nia returned to her desk, hands still trembling slightly from the adrenaline. Jennifer appeared a moment later, leaning against the partition. "That was a power move," Jennifer said quietly. "He didn't have to do that." "Yes, he did. And it worked. Look around." Nia glanced up. A few of her colleagues were watching her with something that looked less like suspicion and more like curiosity. One woman, Sarah, who worked 2 desks over, caught her eye and gave a small, approving nod. It wasn't acceptance. Not yet. But it was a start. The rest of the day passed in a blur of work. Nia threw herself into a new project, analyzing patient data for a trial that was entering phase 3. The numbers were clean, the patterns clear, and for a few hours she could almost forget the chaos swirling around her life. Almost. At 4 o'clock, her phone buzzed with a call from Logan's lawyer, David Chen. "Nia, we have a problem," David said without preamble. Her stomach dropped. "What kind of problem?" "Richard's team just filed an amended complaint. They're alleging that you and Logan colluded to fabricate evidence against Richard as part of a personal vendetta. They're also claiming you accessed confidential files without authorization. That's insane. I had full clearance to review those files. Logan gave me access himself. I know, but they're arguing that the access was inappropriate given your limited tenure and that Logan gave it to you because of your personal relationship. Nia's breath caught. We don't have a personal relationship. I know that, you know that, but the optics are messy. Single mother, sudden job offer, luxury apartment, private nursery, CEO, personally involved in your legal defense. They're going to paint a picture, and it won't be pretty. So what do? We fight it. But Nia, this is going to get worse before it gets better. They're going to dig into your background, your finances, your personal life. Are you prepared for that? She thought about Detroit, about Darren, about every mistake she'd made and every hard choice that had brought her to this moment. I don't have a choice, she said quietly. No, you don't. But I need you to be ready. After the call ended, Nia sat at her desk staring at the data on her screen without really seeing it. She felt exposed, vulnerable, like her entire life was about to be turned inside out for public consumption. Her phone buzzed again. Logan? Logan. David called me. I'm sorry. Nia. Not your fault. Logan. Feels like it is. Nia. You didn't make Richard steal. You didn't make him come after me. Logan. No. But I put you in the line of fire. Nia. I walked into the line of fire on my own. I made the choice to take this job. I made the choice to dig into those files. This is on me too. Logan. You're not going through this alone. I mean that. Nia. I know. She did know. That was the strange part. Despite everything, she trusted Logan, trusted that he meant what he said, trusted that he wouldn't abandon her when things got hard. It was a dangerous thing to trust someone that completely. Nia had learned that lesson the hard way, but Logan had never given her a reason to doubt him, and right now, that trust was the only thing keeping her steady. The next few days were a whirlwind of legal motions, media inquiries, and increasingly hostile coverage. Richard's lawyers were good. Nia had to give them that. They framed the story as a classic case of corporate overreach and romantic favoritism, painting Logan as a CEO blinded by infatuation and Nia as a manipulative opportunist. The narrative stuck because it was simple, salacious, and played into every ugly stereotype about women who succeeded in male-dominated fields. Nia stopped going out except for work, stopped checking social media entirely, focused on Marcus and the data and the small, controllable pieces of her life that hadn't been dragged into the spotlight. Then the photographs appeared. They were published on the same gossip blog that had broken the original story, a slideshow of images taken over the past month. Nia and Logan leaving the office together. Logan's hand on her back as he guided her through a crowd. The two of them sitting in his office late at night, visible through the floor-to-ceiling windows, heads bent close over a laptop. Innocent moments, all of them. Explainable. Professional. But framed a certain way, with captions that dripped with innuendo, they looked like something else entirely. Nia saw the article when Jennifer texted her the link with a simple message. Brace yourself. She clicked through the photos, nausea rising with each one. The comments were worse than before. Accusations, slurs, graphic speculation about what she and Logan were doing behind closed doors. She was sitting on her couch, Marcus asleep in her lap, when Logan called. I saw it, she said before he could speak. I'm having my lawyer send a cease and desist to the blog. This crosses the line into harassment. It won't matter. The photos are already out there. Everyone's already seen them. Nia, they think I'm sleeping with you. Her voice cracked. They think that's the only reason I have this job. That I'm some kind of... Stop. Logan's voice was hard. Don't finish that sentence. Don't give them that power. How am I supposed to ignore this? By remembering who you are. By remembering that you earned this. That you're damn good at your job and none of this changes that. It changes how people see me. Only the people who don't matter. Everyone matters when they're all saying the same thing. There was silence on the other end of the line. Then Logan said, I'm coming over. Logan, you don't need to. I'm already in the car. He hung up before she could argue. 15 minutes later, he was at her door. Nia opened it, still holding Marcus, who was awake now and gnawing on a teething ring. Logan stepped inside, closed the door behind him, and just looked at her. "You okay?" he asked quietly. "No?" "Fair enough." He moved to the couch and sat down, and after a moment Nia joined him, settling Marcus on the cushion between them. They sat in silence for a while, the only sound Marcus's happy babbling as he waved his teething ring in the air. "I'm not going to let them destroy you," Logan said finally. "You can't control what people think." "No, but I can control the truth. And the truth is that you're one of the smartest, most capable people I've ever worked with. The truth is that you saved this company from a major scandal. The truth is that every accusation against you is a lie designed to protect a criminal. The truth doesn't matter if no one believes it." Logan turned to face her, his expression fierce. "Then we make them believe it. We fight back. We take this to court. We present the evidence. We let a judge and jury see exactly what Richard did and exactly how you uncovered it. And when it's over, everyone will know that you were right. And if we lose, we won't. You keep saying that. Because it's true. I've been building this company for 10 years, Nia. I know how to fight, and I know how to win." She wanted to believe him, wanted to trust that confidence, that certainty. But doubt gnawed at her, whispering that maybe this time being right wouldn't be enough. "What if fighting back just makes it worse?" she asked. "What if going to court just drags this out, keeps my name in the headlines, ruins any chance I have of moving on? Then we deal with it, together." The word landed between them like a stone dropped in still water. Together, like they were a team, like this wasn't just her battle or his battle, but something they were facing side by side. Nia looked down at Marcus, who had abandoned his teething ring and was reaching for Logan's watch, tiny fingers grasping at the metal band. Logan let him take it, smiling as Marcus brought it to his mouth. "He's going to drool all over that," Nia said. "It's just a watch." "It's a $20,000 watch," Logan laughed, the sound surprising in the heavy atmosphere. "You Googled my watch. I Googled everything about you after you sent me $10,000. Find anything interesting? You're richer than I thought, and you hate doing interviews." Accurate on both counts. Marcus squealed and dropped the watch, immediately reaching for Logan's sleeve instead. Logan scooped him up without hesitation, settling the baby on his knee. Marcus stared at him with wide, curious eyes, then reached up and grabbed Logan's nose. "He likes you," Nia said softly. "I like him too. He's got good taste in people. He's 6 months old. He likes anyone who feeds him. Still counts." They sat like that for a while, Logan holding Marcus, Nia watching them both. It was such a simple moment, so domestic and ordinary, and yet it made her chest ache with something she couldn't quite name. Hope, maybe. Or longing. Or just the dangerous realization that she was starting to care about Logan Pierce in a way that had nothing to do with gratitude or professional respect. That scared her more than Richard's lawsuit ever could. Logan stayed until Marcus fell asleep, then carefully handed him back to Nia. She carried him to the nursery and laid him in the crib, tucking the embroidered blanket around him. When she returned to the living room, Logan was standing by the window, staring out at the city lights. "Thank you for coming," Nia said. "Anytime." "I mean it. You didn't have to do this, any of this. The job, the apartment, the legal help. You could have just sent the $50 and walked away." Logan turned to face her. "I couldn't." "Why not?" He hesitated, and for a moment Nia thought he might deflect, make a joke, change the subject. But then he said, "Because I know what it's like to be desperate and alone and have no one show up. And I swore that if I ever had the chance to be the person who showed up for someone else, I would." "Your sister." He nodded. "Lily. She needed help, and I was too busy to give it. I thought there'd be time later. There wasn't." "That wasn't your fault, wasn't it?" "No. Addiction is complicated. You couldn't have saved her just by answering the phone." "Maybe not. But I'll never know, will I?" He looked at her, eyes shadowed with old grief. "When I got your text, I saw a chance to do it differently, to be there, to help. And then I met you, and you turned out to be exactly the kind of person worth helping. Smart, hardworking, proud as hell, fighting to give your kid a better life. How was I supposed to walk away from that?" Nia's throat tightened. "I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything." "Logan, I should go. It's late." He moved toward the door, then paused with his hand on the knob. Whatever happens next, we face it together, okay? Okay. He left, and Nia stood in the quiet apartment, heart pounding, trying to make sense of everything she was feeling. Gratitude, yes. Respect, trust. But also something deeper, something that made her pulse quicken when he smiled at her, something that made her chest ache when he talked about his sister. She was falling for him, and that was a complication she absolutely could not afford. The legal battle escalated over the next 2 weeks. Richard's team filed motions challenging the validity of the audit, demanding access to Nia's personal communications, and requesting depositions from half the employees at Pierce Biotech. David and his team countered every move, but the process was grinding and relentless. Nia was deposed on a Tuesday afternoon in a sterile conference room downtown. Richard's lawyer was a woman in her 50s with sharp eyes and a sharper tongue. She spent 3 hours grilling Nia about her relationship with Logan, her qualifications, her access to confidential files, her motivations for investigating Richard. "Isn't it true, Ms. Brooks, that you had a personal relationship with Mr. Pierce before he hired you?" the lawyer asked. "No, we'd never met in person before my interview. But you had communicated via text message." "Yes, after I accidentally texted him instead of my brother. And he responded by sending you $10,000. "Yes." "Does that strike you as normal behavior, Ms. Brooks?" Nia kept her voice steady. "It struck me as generous. Or manipulative. A way to establish leverage over someone in a vulnerable position." David cut in. "Objection. Speculation." The lawyer smiled. "I'll rephrase. Ms. Brooks, did you feel obligated to Mr. Pierce after he sent you that money?" "I felt grateful." "Grateful enough to accept a job you weren't qualified for?" "I was qualified. My resume speaks for itself." "Your resume shows a year-long employment gap and no recent experience in the biotech industry." "I was raising my son, and data analysis is data analysis, regardless of industry." "Is it? Or were you simply out of your depth and willing to do whatever Mr. Pierce asked to keep your position?" Nia's hands clenched under the table. "I did my job. I did it well. And when I found evidence of fraud, I reported it. That's what any ethical employee would do. Or what someone with a personal agenda would do." "I don't have a personal agenda. I have integrity." The lawyer leaned back, studying her. "We'll see." The deposition ended at 6. Nia left the building, shaking with suppressed rage and exhaustion. Logan was waiting outside, leaning against his car. "How'd it go?" he asked. "She tried to make it sound like I'm either incompetent or corrupt. Possibly both. That's her job. Doesn't mean she succeeded." "I don't know if I can do this for months, Logan. I don't know if I'm strong enough." He stepped closer, his voice low and fierce. "You're the strongest person I know. And you're not doing this alone. Everyone keeps saying that, but I'm the one in that room getting torn apart. And I'm the one standing outside that room ready to catch you when you walk out. Every single time." Nia looked up at him, and something in his eyes made her breath catch. There was no pity there, no doubt, just absolute unwavering belief. "Why?" she whispered. "Because you're worth it." The words hung between them, heavy with meaning. Nia wanted to step closer, wanted to close the distance and see what would happen. But fear held her back, fear of making things more complicated, fear of giving Richard's lawyers more ammunition, fear of getting hurt. "We should go," she said instead. Logan nodded, but the look in his eyes said he understood everything she wasn't saying. That night, Nia lay awake in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying the deposition in her mind. The questions, the implications. The way Richard's lawyer had looked at her like she was something dirty, something shameful. She thought about quitting, about packing up Marcus and moving somewhere quiet, somewhere no one knew her name or cared about corporate scandals or billion-dollar lawsuits. She could start over, find a job that paid enough to get by, raise her son in peace. But then she thought about the data she'd uncovered, the fraud she'd stopped, the truth she'd exposed. If she walked away now, Richard won. The lie became the story, and Nia Brooks would forever be the woman who slept her way into a job and lied to keep it. She couldn't let that happen. So when her alarm went off at 6 the next morning, she got up, got dressed, and went to work. And she kept going, day after day, through every hostile article and ugly rumor and legal motion designed to break her. Because Logan was right about one thing, she was stronger than they knew. And she wasn't done fighting yet. The breakthrough came on a gray Thursday morning 3 weeks later, when Nia was elbow deep in a new dataset and trying very hard not to think about the upcoming court hearing. David had called the night before to warn her that Richard's team was planning to introduce new evidence, documents that allegedly showed Nia had accessed restricted files without proper authorization. The claim was absurd, but absurd didn't mean ineffective. She was running correlations on patient outcome metrics when her phone buzzed. A text from Jennifer. Jennifer. Conference room B. Now. Bring everything you have on the Apex investigation. Nia's pulse quickened. She grabbed her laptop and the external drive where she'd backed up all the vendor payment records, checked on Marcus, still napping peacefully in the nursery, and headed down the hall. Jennifer was waiting inside the conference room with two people Nia didn't recognize. A man in his 30s wearing a rumpled suit and a woman with silver-streaked hair pulled into a tight bun. Nia Brooks. This is Agent Michael Reeves and Agent Susan Park from the FBI's Financial Crimes Division, Jennifer said. Nia's stomach dropped. FBI? Agent Reeves gestured to a chair. Please sit down. We need to ask you some questions about Richard Gaines and the vendor fraud you uncovered. Nia sat slowly, gripping her laptop like a lifeline. Am I in trouble? No, Agent Park said quickly. You're not a suspect. We're here because we've been investigating a series of shell company schemes across multiple corporations in the Midwest, and your findings at Pierce Biotech fit the pattern we've been tracking. We think Richard Gaines is connected to a larger network, Agent Reeves added, and we need your help proving it. Nia blinked. You think he's part of an organized fraud operation? We know he is. We just need the documentation to build a case. Agent Park leaned forward. The vendor records you flagged, Apex Solutions and the offshore payment routing. That's the signature we've seen in 4 other companies over the past 18 months. Same setup, same shell structure, same disappearing act with the funds. Someone's running this operation, and Richard Gaines is either a key player or a very well-connected participant. How much money are we talking about? Nia asked. Across all 5 companies? Close to $3 million. The number hit her like a fist. $3 million. Families ruined. Investors defrauded. Employees wondering why their benefits got cut while someone siphoned money into offshore accounts. What do you need from me? Nia said. Agent Reeves pulled out a tablet and brought up a series of spreadsheets. We need you to walk us through exactly how you identified the fraud. Every step. Every data point. We need it documented so thoroughly that a jury can follow it without hesitation. Nia took the tablet. The spreadsheets looked similar to what she'd analyzed, but these included data from the other companies, payment records, vendor contracts, routing numbers. She scanned the first few pages, her analytical mind already picking up the patterns. These timestamps are sequential across companies, she said, pointing to a column. Same 3-day gaps between payments, same amounts adjusted for company size. Whoever set this up used a template. Agent Park smiled. Exactly. Can you document that? Yes, but it's going to take time. We have time. The trial doesn't start for another 6 weeks. Nia's head snapped up. You're going to testify at the trial? If it gets that far. But we're hoping Richard sees the writing on the wall and takes a deal. Agent Reeves closed his folder. The point is, Ms. Brooks, you didn't just uncover one instance of fraud. You cracked open a major criminal operation, and that makes you a very important witness. After the agents left, Nia sat in the empty conference room trying to process what had just happened. The FBI. A multi-million-dollar fraud scheme. Richard Gaines wasn't just a corrupt CFO. He was a criminal, possibly part of a network that had been operating for years. And she'd exposed him. Jennifer returned with 2 cups of coffee and sat down across from her. You okay? I don't know. This just got a lot bigger. It also just got a lot more legitimate. The FBI doesn't investigate baseless accusations. They investigate crimes, which means everything you found was real, everything you reported was true, and Richard's entire defense just collapsed. He's still going to fight. Let him. He's fighting the federal government now, not just you. Nia took a sip of coffee, letting the warmth ground her. Do you think Logan knows? If he doesn't yet, he will soon. The agents are meeting with him next. Nia pulled out her phone and texted Logan. Nia, FB, I just left. Did they talk to you? The reply came within seconds. Logan, in the meeting now. Are you okay? Nia, yeah. Overwhelmed, but okay. Logan, we need to talk. Come up when you're ready. Nia finished her coffee, checked on Marcus one more time, and took the elevator to the 52nd floor. Logan's assistant waved her through immediately. Inside the office, Logan was standing by the windows with his phone pressed to his ear, speaking in low, clipped tones. When he saw Nia, he ended the call and crossed the room. The FBI thinks Richard's been running this scheme for at least 2 years, he said without preamble. They have evidence linking him to 4 other companies. They're building a racketeering case. They told me. They want my help documenting the data trail. Logan scrubbed a hand over his face. This is going to explode. Once the FBI announces charges, every media outlet in the country is going to cover it. Is that good or bad for us? Good, because it proves you were right. Bad, because it's going to put you even more in the spotlight. He met her eyes. Are you ready for that? Nia thought about the articles, the photographs, the depositions, the endless scrutiny. Then she thought about the $3 million stolen from people who'd trusted their employers, their leaders, their financial officers. I don't have a choice, she said. If I don't help the FBI, Richard might walk. And all those companies, all those people, they deserve justice. You're sure? I'm sure. Logan studied her for a long moment, then nodded. Okay, then we do this. But we do it smart. David's going to coordinate with the FBI to make sure anything you provide them can also be used in our civil case. And I'm putting additional security on you and Marcus. Security? Logan, that's non-negotiable. Richard's looking at serious prison time. Desperate people do dangerous things. A chill ran down Nia's spine. She hadn't thought about physical danger. Hadn't considered that Richard might escalate beyond legal threats. You really think he'd try something? She asked quietly. I think he's already proven he's willing to lie, cheat, and destroy reputations to protect himself. I'm not taking chances with your safety. Logan pulled out his phone and sent a quick text. I'm having a security team meet you at your apartment tonight. They'll do a sweep, install better locks, set up monitoring, and there will be someone assigned to you whenever you leave the building. Logan, I can't live like that. You won't have to, just until the trial's over and Richard's either in custody or out of options. Nia wanted to argue, but the firm set of Logan's jaw told her it wouldn't matter. He'd made up his mind, and maybe deep down she was relieved. The thought of Richard showing up at her door, of someone threatening Marcus, made her stomach turn. Okay, she said, security, but I'm not changing my routine. I'm still coming to work, still taking Marcus to the park on weekends. I'm not hiding. I wouldn't expect you to. Over the next 2 weeks, Nia worked closely with the FBI, spending her evenings after Marcus went to sleep documenting every piece of evidence she'd uncovered. Agent Park walked her through the process, teaching her how to present complex financial data in a way that non-experts could understand. It was meticulous, exhausting work, but Nia found a strange comfort in it. For the first time since this nightmare began, she had control. She knew the data, she knew the truth, and she was building an unshakable case. The security team Logan hired was professional and unobtrusive. A man named Derek shadowed her during the day, keeping his distance but always present. He walked her to her car, rode the elevator with her, sat in the coffee shop across from her building during her off hours. At first it felt invasive. Then Nia stopped noticing. It became part of the routine, another layer of protection in a world that suddenly felt much less safe. The media caught wind of the FBI investigation in early March. The headline in the Chicago Tribune read, Federal Investigation Expands, Pierce Biotech, CFO, linked to multi-million-dollar fraud scheme. The article was measured, factual, citing unnamed sources within law enforcement. It didn't mention Nia by name, but anyone following the story knew exactly who'd uncovered the fraud. The gossip blogs had a field day. Some praised her as a whistleblower. Others doubled down on the romance narrative, claiming she'd weaponized her relationship with Logan to take down a rival. The comment sections were toxic as ever, but Nia had learned to ignore them. What mattered was the truth. And the truth was finally coming to light, Richard's legal team went into overdrive. They filed emergency motions challenging the FBI's involvement, claiming the investigation was tainted by corporate bias. They demanded access to all communications between Naya and the FBI, between Logan and the FBI, between David and the FBI. Every motion was denied. The evidence was too strong, the pattern too clear. Richard Gaines had stolen millions, and no amount of legal maneuvering could erase that. Then, 3 weeks before the trial, Richard made a mistake. Nia was working late on a Friday, finishing up a report for Agent Park, when her phone rang. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. Hello? Silence. Then a man's voice, low and tight with barely controlled rage. You stupid, arrogant bitch! You have no idea what you've done. Nia's blood went cold. Who is this? You think you're so smart, don't you? Think you're some kind of hero, but all you've done is ruin lives, mine, my family's, people who trusted me. Richard, you should have stayed in Detroit, should have kept serving coffee and kept your mouth shut. Now you're going to pay for this. Is that a threat? It's a promise. The line went dead. Nia sat frozen, phone still pressed to her ear, heart hammering so hard she thought it might break through her ribs. Derek appeared in the doorway immediately, hand on the holster under his jacket. What happened? Richard called. He threatened me. Derek's expression went hard. Did he say anything specific? He said I was going to pay, that I'd ruined his life. Stay here. Derek pulled out his phone and made a call, speaking in low, urgent tones. Within minutes, Logan burst into the office, followed by 2 more security personnel. Are you okay? Logan demanded. I'm fine. Shaken, but fine. Where's Marcus? With Margaret in the nursery. He's safe. Logan nodded to one of the security guards. Go sit with them. No one in or out. He turned back to Naya, his face pale with controlled fury. What exactly did Richard say? She repeated the conversation word for word, her voice steadier than she felt. When she finished, Logan pulled out his own phone and called David. Richard Gaines just called Nia and made verbal threats. Yes, I'm serious. Get it to the FBI immediately and file for a restraining order. I want it done tonight. He hung up and looked at Derek. I want her protected 24/7. No gaps. And I want her apartment swept again. Already on it, Derek said. Logan turned to Naya, his voice gentler. You're not going home tonight. You and Marcus are staying at my place. Logan, this isn't a discussion. Richard's desperate and dangerous. I'm not taking any chances. Nia opened her mouth to argue, then closed it. The fear still thrumming through her veins told her Logan was right. Richard had crossed a line. And until he was in custody, Marcus wasn't safe. Okay, she said quietly. They collected Marcus from the nursery, packed a quick bag of essentials, and Derek drove them to Logan's penthouse in a high-rise overlooking Lake Michigan. The apartment was massive, floor-to-ceiling windows, sleek modern furniture, a kitchen bigger than Nia's entire living room. Logan showed her to a guest room with an adjoining nursery that looked like it had been recently set up. I had this done last week, Logan said, gesturing to the crib and changing table, just in case. You planned for this? I planned for contingencies. Richard's been escalating. I wanted to be ready. Nia set Marcus's carrier down and turned to face Logan. He looked exhausted, tension radiating from every line of his body. Thank you, she said, for all of this, for keeping us safe. You don't need to thank me. Yes, I do. You didn't sign up for this. Neither did you. He stepped closer, close enough that Naya could see the flecks of gray in his blue eyes, close enough to feel the warmth radiating from him. But we're in it together. That hasn't changed. The air between them felt charged, heavy with everything they hadn't said. Nia's breath caught. For a moment she thought Logan might close the distance, might finally cross the line they'd been dancing around for months. But then Marcus let out a fussy cry, and the moment broke. I should get him settled, Naya said, stepping back. Right. Of course. I'll be in the living room if you need anything. He left, and Naya busied herself getting Marcus ready for bed, trying to ignore the way her hands were shaking. The phone call had rattled her more than she wanted to admit. Richard's voice had been filled with such venom, such hate. He blamed her for everything, and blame like that could turn violent. She checked the locks twice before climbing into bed. Marcus slept peacefully in the crib beside her, oblivious to the danger swirling around them. Nia lay awake for hours, listening to the sounds of the unfamiliar apartment, watching shadows move across the ceiling. Somewhere around 2 in the morning, there was a soft knock on her door. "Come in," she called quietly. Logan entered, still dressed in his jeans and sweater. "Saw your light was on. Can't sleep?" "Not really." He sat on the edge of the bed, careful to keep a respectful distance. "Want to talk about it? I keep hearing his voice. Keeps playing on a loop in my head. Can't get to you here, I promise." "I know. Logically, I know that, but fear isn't logical." Logan was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "When my sister died, I had nightmares for a year. Kept dreaming that she was calling me, that I could hear her voice but couldn't find her. I'd wake up convinced I could have saved her if I'd just tried harder. That must have been awful." "It was. But eventually I realized that torturing myself didn't change anything, didn't bring her back, didn't make the guilt go away. All it did was keep me stuck." He looked at her. "You're not stuck, Nia. You're moving forward. You exposed a criminal. You're helping the FBI build a case. You're protecting other people from what Richard did to you. That takes courage." "I don't feel courageous. I feel terrified." "Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's doing the right thing despite the fear." Nia smiled despite herself. "That sounds like something out of a motivational poster. Doesn't make it less true." They sat in comfortable silence for a while. Finally, Logan stood. "Try to get some rest. Tomorrow we'll talk to the FBI about the phone call and make sure Richard can't contact you again. Okay?" He moved toward the door, then paused. "Nia?" "Yeah." "I'm really glad you sent that text to the wrong number." Her throat tightened. "Me too." After he left, Nia finally fell asleep, lulled by the knowledge that for tonight at least, she and Marcus were safe. The restraining order was granted on Monday morning. Richard was barred from contacting Nia, directly or indirectly, from coming within 500 feet of her or Marcus, and from entering Pierce Biotech property. The FBI used the phone call as additional evidence of obstruction and witness intimidation, adding charges to the growing list Richard would face at trial. His lawyers issued a statement claiming Richard had been under extreme emotional distress and hadn't meant the threat seriously. No one bought it. The damage was done. And the court date was now just 2 weeks away. Nia moved back to her own apartment under protest, but Derek and his team maintained constant surveillance. She returned to work, threw herself into the final preparations for trial, and tried very hard not to think about the fact that in 14 days she'd be sitting in a courtroom telling her story to a judge and jury while Richard Gaines stared her down from the defense table. Logan checked on her constantly, texts throughout the day, calls in the evening, stopping by her office to make sure she was okay. It was sweet. It was also making it harder for Nia to maintain the professional distance she kept telling herself was necessary. Because the truth was, she'd stopped thinking of Logan as just her boss weeks ago, maybe months ago. He'd become something more: friend, protector, partner in this fight. And the way he looked at her sometimes, the way his hand would linger on her shoulder, or his voice would soften when he said her name, told her he felt it too. But acting on those feelings while in the middle of a lawsuit that accused them of an inappropriate relationship would be spectacularly stupid. So Nia kept her distance, kept things professional, kept her heart locked down tight, even as it kept trying to betray her. The Friday before the trial, David held a final prep session in his office. Nia, Logan, and Agent Park sat around the conference table while David walked them through the timeline of events, the evidence they'd present, the likely arguments from Richard's defense. "They're going to paint you as biased," David said, looking at Nia. "They're going to suggest you had personal motivations for investigating Richard, that you were following Logan's direction rather than acting on genuine evidence." "None of that's true," Nia said. "I know, but they'll argue it anyway. Your job is to stay calm, stick to the facts, and don't let them bait you into emotional responses." "What if they bring up the wrong number text, the money Logan sent?" "They will." "Absolutely. And when they do, you tell the truth. You needed help. Logan offered it. There was no quid pro quo, no expectation of anything in return, just human decency. They'll try to make it sound transactional. Let them. The jury will decide if they believe that or if they believe a man saw someone in trouble and helped. David closed his folder. The evidence is overwhelming. The FBI's case is airtight. Richard's going down. The only question is whether he tries to drag you and Logan down with him. After the meeting, Logan walked Nia to her car. The evening was cool, the city lit up against the darkening sky. Derek waited discreetly by the entrance, giving them space. "You ready for this?" Logan asked. "I don't think anyone's ever ready to testify against someone who wants to destroy them." "Fair point." He leaned against the car beside her. "For what it's worth, I think you're going to be incredible up there. Calm, confident, unshakable. You have a lot more faith in me than I have in myself." "Then borrow mine until you find your own." Nia looked up at him. This man who'd turned her entire life upside down with an act of unexpected kindness, who'd stood by her through every attack and accusation, who looked at her like she was someone worth fighting for. "Logan," she started, then stopped, unsure how to finish the sentence. "Yeah? When this is over," she took a breath. "When the trial's done and the verdict's in and things finally settle down, can we talk about everything that isn't the lawsuit?" Logan's expression softened. "I'd like that. A lot." "Okay, good." They stood there for another moment, neither wanting to break the connection. Then Marcus started fussing from his car seat, and reality reasserted itself. "I should go," Nia said. "See you Monday." "See you Monday." She drove home with her heart full of equal parts fear and hope, knowing that in just a few days everything would change. For better or worse, the truth was about to come out, and there would be no hiding from it anymore. The courthouse was a fortress of gray stone and glass in downtown Chicago, imposing and cold under a sky threatening rain. Nia arrived at 8 in the morning on Monday, Marcus bundled against the March chill, Derek walking close beside her. A cluster of reporters had gathered on the steps, cameras ready, microphones thrust forward the moment they spotted her. "Ms. Brooks, how do you feel about testifying today? Is it true you and Logan Pierce are romantically involved? Do you think Richard Gaines will be convicted?" Nia kept her head down, moving through the crowd without responding. Derek cleared a path, his hand light on her back, guiding her through the doors and into the relative quiet of the courthouse lobby. Inside, David was waiting with Agent Park and 2 other FBI agents Nia had met during the investigation. "Ready?" David asked. "As I'll ever be." They took the elevator to the 5th floor, where the courtroom was already filling with spectators, journalists, and legal teams. Logan was seated in the gallery, dressed in a dark suit, looking every inch the Billionaire CEO. When he saw Nia, he stood and crossed to her. "You've got this," he said quietly. "I hope so." "I know so." Margaret appeared from a side room, arms outstretched. "I'll take this little one. You go do what you need to do." Nia handed Marcus over, kissing his forehead. "Be good for Margaret, baby." Marcus gurgled happily, already reaching for Margaret's necklace. Nia watched them disappear into the witness waiting room, then followed David into the courtroom. Richard Gaines sat at the defense table, flanked by his lawyers, looking thinner than Nia remembered, his face drawn and pale. When their eyes met across the room, his expression hardened into something cold and hateful. Nia forced herself to hold his gaze for 3 long seconds before looking away. She wouldn't give him the satisfaction of seeing her flinch. The judge entered, a woman in her 60s with sharp eyes and no-nonsense demeanor. Everyone rose. The bailiff called the court to order, and just like that, the trial began. The prosecution opened with a clear, methodical outline of the charges: wire fraud, embezzlement, racketeering, obstruction of justice. They laid out the scheme in simple terms: fake vendors, offshore accounts, stolen money funneled through shell corporations across 5 different companies over 2 years. The evidence was overwhelming, the pattern undeniable. Richard's lead attorney, a man named Harrison Brooks, who'd made his career defending white-collar criminals, countered with a narrative of corporate scapegoating. He painted Richard as a dedicated employee, 15 years of loyal service, now being railroaded by a CEO looking to cover up his own company's financial mismanagement. He suggested the fraud had been committed by others, and Richard had simply been in the wrong place at the wrong time. It was a thin argument, and everyone in the room knew it. But Brooks delivered it with enough confidence to plant seeds of doubt. The prosecution called their first witness, the forensic accountant who'd traced the money. He spent 3 hours walking the jury through bank records, transaction logs, and offshore routing numbers. It was dense, technical testimony, but crucial for establishing the foundation of the case. Then it was Nia's turn. The bailiff called her name. She stood, smoothed her skirt, and walked to the witness stand. The courtroom felt enormous suddenly, every eye on her, the weight of the moment pressing down like a physical thing. She was sworn in, stated her name for the record, and sat down. The prosecutor, a woman named Ellen Martinez, smiled warmly. "Miss Brooks, can you tell the court how you came to work at Pierce Biotech?" Nia took a breath and told the story. The wrong number text, Logan's unexpected generosity, the job offer, her discovery of the vendor irregularities. She kept her voice steady, her answers clear and factual. Ellen walked her through the timeline methodically, introducing each piece of evidence, each transaction record, each email that built the case against Richard. "When you first identified the payments to Apex Solutions, what did you do?" Ellen asked. "I cross-referenced them with project timelines and department budgets. The payments didn't match any active projects, and the vendor had no legitimate business presence. That raised red flags." "And what did you do with that information?" "I reported it to Logan Pierce immediately. He initiated a formal investigation through external auditors." "Did you have any personal motivation for investigating these transactions?" "No, I was doing my job. Analyzing data is what I was hired to do." Ellen nodded and returned to her table, pulling out a document. "I'd like to show you Exhibit 17, Ms. Brooks. Can you identify this?" Niall looked at the printout. It was the original vendor contract with Apex Solutions, Richard's signature at the bottom. "This is the contract that authorized payments to the shell company. Richard Gaines signed it." "And in your professional opinion, would someone in Mr. Gaines' position have known this was a fraudulent vendor?" "Objection," Brooks called. "Calls for speculation." "I'll rephrase," Ellen said smoothly. "Ms. Brooks, based on your analysis of Pierce Biotech's vendor management protocols, would a CFO have access to the information needed to verify a vendor's legitimacy?" "Yes. The CFO has access to all vendor databases, contract records, and payment histories. It would be impossible to miss a fake vendor at that level unless you were deliberately avoiding verification." Ellen smiled. "Thank you. No further questions." Brooks stood immediately, buttoning his jacket as he approached. His smile was predatory. "Ms. Brooks, you testified that you were hired by Logan Pierce after sending him a text message asking for $50. Is that correct?" "Yes." "And he sent you $10,000 instead?" "Yes." "Did that strike you as strange behavior from someone you'd never met?" "It struck me as generous." "Or manipulative? A way to establish control over someone in a vulnerable position." "Objection," Ellen said. "Argumentative." "Sustained." Brooks circled closer. "You also testified that Mr. Pierce offered you a job shortly after this financial transaction, a job you admittedly had no recent experience for." "I had the qualifications. I'd worked in data analytics before." "Before you took a year off to have a baby and work as a waitress?" Heat flooded Nia's cheeks, but she kept her voice level. "I took time off to care for my son. That doesn't erase my education or my skills." "But it does create a gap, doesn't it? A gap in your resume that would make most employers hesitant to hire you for a high-level position at a billion-dollar company. Logan Pierce saw my potential. He gave me a chance to prove myself. Or he gave you a job because he wanted something from you." "Objection!" Ellen was on her feet. "Counsel is testifying, not questioning." "Sustained. Mr. Brooks, ask questions or sit down." Brooks didn't miss a beat. "Mrs. Brooks, isn't it true that you and Mr. Pierce have been romantically involved since he hired you?" "No, that's absolutely false." "Then how do you explain the photographs of you two leaving work together, having dinner together, working late in his office alone?" "We work together. We're colleagues. There's nothing romantic about it." "You expect this jury to believe that a billionaire sends $10,000 to a complete stranger, offers her a job, sets up a private nursery for her child, and provides her with a luxury apartment, all without expecting anything in return?" Nia leaned forward, her voice sharp. "Yes. Because that's exactly what happened. Logan Pierce helped me because he's a decent human being, not because he wanted something from me. And I uncovered fraud because I'm good at my job, not because I had some ulterior motive. If you want to discredit me, try attacking my analysis instead of my character. Brooks's smile faltered. Your analysis conveniently targeted my client, the one person standing between Mr. Pierce and complete financial control of the company. Your client was stealing money. The evidence proves it. My personal life has nothing to do with his crimes. Doesn't it? You admit you benefited financially from your relationship with Mr. Pierce? I benefited from employment. That's how jobs work. You do the work, you get paid. I did excellent work, and yes, I was compensated fairly for it. Brooks opened his mouth to continue, but the judge cut him off. Mr. Brooks, unless you have questions directly related to the defendant's alleged crimes, move on. Brooks glared at Nia for a long moment, then returned to his table. No further questions. Nia stepped down, legs shaking, and returned to her seat beside David. Logan caught her eye from the gallery and gave her a small nod. She'd held her ground, she'd told the truth, and she hadn't let Brooks break her. The trial continued for 3 more days. The FBI agents testified, walking the jury through the multi-company investigation and the pattern of fraud linking Richard to the larger scheme. Character witnesses spoke to Richard's position and responsibilities, establishing that he would have had both the knowledge and authority to create the fake vendors. Financial experts explained how the money had been routed through offshore accounts, how the amounts had been carefully calculated to avoid triggering automatic fraud detection systems. Richard's defense was thin. They called witnesses who spoke to his years of service, his reputation, his dedication to the company. They suggested the fraud had been committed by subordinates without his knowledge. But when pressed on specifics, their testimony crumbled. The evidence was too clear, the paper trail too well documented. On Thursday afternoon, Richard himself took the stand. He was polished, confident, speaking directly to the jury with the kind of practiced sincerity that probably worked in boardrooms but felt hollow in a courtroom. He denied everything, claimed the contracts with Apex Solutions had been signed by someone using his credentials, suggested that Nia had fabricated evidence to make herself look valuable to Logan, painted himself as a victim of corporate politics, an ambitious woman willing to lie to advance her career. Ellen Martinez destroyed him on cross-examination. Mr. Gaines, you testified that someone else used your credentials to sign the Apex Solutions contract. Is that correct? Yes. And you never noticed unauthorized access to your accounts? Not until the audit. But you're the CFO. You review every major financial decision, every contract, every vendor agreement. Are you telling this jury that you failed to notice contracts worth $200,000 being executed in your name? Richard hesitated. The amounts were small individually. They wouldn't have triggered my attention. Small individually, yes, but you just testified that you review every major financial decision. Which is it, Mr. Gaines? Do you pay attention to details, or don't you? Contracts of that size are handled by my staff. Your staff. The same staff who testified that they never saw these contracts, that they were surprised to learn about Apex Solutions during the audit. The same staff who stated under oath that only you had the authority to approve vendors of this type. They were mistaken. Although Ellen pulled out a document. Let me show you your own memo from March of last year, Exhibit 42. This is an email you sent to your team outlining vendor approval protocols. Can you read the highlighted section for the jury? Richard's jaw tightened. All vendor contracts exceeding $5,000 must be personally reviewed and approved by the CFO before execution. That's you, correct? Yes. So either you reviewed and approved these contracts, or you violated your own protocols. Which is it? Someone must have bypassed the protocols. Without you noticing, for 8 months, across multiple transactions. Richard's face flushed. That's what I'm saying. Or you signed the contracts yourself, created the fake vendor, and stole the money. Isn't that what actually happened? No. You stole from Pierce Biotech. You stole from 4 other companies using the same scheme. You stole nearly $3 million over 2 years. And when Nia Brooks uncovered your crimes, you tried to destroy her reputation to save yourself. That's a lie. Is it? You called her, threatened her, told her she'd pay for exposing you. We have the recording, Mr. Gaines. Your own voice, your own words, proving that you saw Mrs. Brooks as a threat because she found the evidence of your crimes. Richard's composure cracked. She had no right to dig into those files. She was new. She didn't understand how the business worked. She understood fraud when she saw it, and that terrified you, didn't it? Objection! Brooks was on his feet, badgering the witness. Withdrawn, Ellen smiled. No further questions. Richard stepped down, looking pale and shaken. His lawyers huddled with him during the recess, but Nia could see the defeat in their body language. The trial was effectively over. All that remained was the closing arguments and the jury's verdict. The closing arguments were delivered on Friday morning. Brooks made one last attempt to paint Richard as a scapegoat, but his heart wasn't in it. Ellen's closing was devastating. A clear, factual recitation of the evidence, the timeline, the irrefutable proof that Richard Gaines had committed every crime he was charged with. The defense wants you to believe this is about corporate politics, Ellen said, looking each juror in the eye. But it's not. This is about theft, plain and simple. Richard Gaines stole money from the companies that trusted him, from the employees who depended on him, from the investors who believed in him. He created fake vendors, he routed money through offshore accounts, and he did it all with the full knowledge that what he was doing was illegal. When Nia Brooks discovered his scheme, he didn't confess. He didn't apologize. He attacked her. He tried to destroy her reputation, her career, her life. Because that's what guilty people do when they're caught. They lash out. They deflect. They lie. Don't let him get away with it. Look at the evidence. Look at the facts. And find him guilty. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. Nia spent that time in the witness waiting room with Marcus, trying to distract herself with anything other than the 1,000 scenarios playing in her head. Logan stopped by twice, bringing coffee and reassurance. David checked in every hour with updates that weren't really updates. The jury had asked for clarification on one charge, had requested to see certain exhibits, had broken for lunch. Finally, at 4:30 in the afternoon, the bailiff knocked on the door. "Jury's back." Nia's heart stopped. She handed Marcus to Margaret, straightened her blazer, and followed David back into the courtroom. The gallery was packed, every seat filled with reporters, Pierce Biotech employees, and people who'd been following the trial from the beginning. Logan was in the front row. When Nia sat down, he reached forward and squeezed her shoulder. The jury filed in, their faces unreadable. Nia searched them for some sign, some indication of which way they'd decided, but found nothing. The judge looked at the jury foreman. "Has the jury reached a verdict?" "We have, Your Honor." "On the charge of wire fraud, how do you find?" "Guilty." Nia's breath left her in a rush. "On the charge of embezzlement?" "Guilty." "On the charge of racketeering?" "Guilty." "On the charge of obstruction of justice?" "Guilty." The judge continued through all 12 charges. Guilty. 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 Every single one. Richard sat frozen at the defense table, his face ashen. His lawyers whispered frantically among themselves. In the gallery, people started murmuring, the sound building like a wave. The judge banged her gavel. "Order. Mr. Gaines, you've been found guilty on all counts. Sentencing is scheduled for 6 weeks from today. Until then, you'll remain in custody. Bailiff, take the defendant into custody." 2 officers approached Richard. He stood slowly, hands shaking as they cuffed him. As they led him past Nia's table, he turned and looked at her one last time. There was no rage in his eyes now, just hollow defeat. Then he was gone, led through the side door toward the holding cells. The courtroom erupted. Reporters rushed for the exits, already typing on their phones. People in the gallery stood, talking excitedly. David turned to Nia with a wide smile. "You did it," he said. "We did it," Nia corrected, her voice shaking. Logan was suddenly there, pulling her into a hug that lifted her off her feet. She clung to him, tears streaming down her face, all the fear and stress and exhaustion of the past months finally breaking free. "It's over," Logan said into her hair. "It's finally over. He's going to prison. For a long time. 20 years, minimum, if the sentencing guidelines hold." Nia pulled back, wiping her eyes. "I can't believe it's actually over." "Believe it. You won. You stood up to him, you told the truth, and you won. David cleared his throat. Hate to interrupt, but there's a press conference in 10 minutes. The FBI wants to make a statement, and they'd like you both there. Logan looked at Nia. You up for it? She thought about all the articles, all the accusations, all the people who'd called her a liar, and worse. Thought about the chance to set the record straight once and for all. Yeah, she said, I'm up for it. The press conference was held in a room on the courthouse's first floor, packed with cameras and reporters. Agent Park stood at a podium flanked by other FBI officials. Ellen Martinez, David, Logan, and Nia. Margaret stood in the back with Marcus, keeping him calm and quiet. Agent Park delivered a statement outlining the verdict, the investigation, and the broader implications of the case. She thanked the team at Pierce Biotech for their cooperation, specifically naming Nia as the analyst whose work had broken the case open. Then the questions started. Ms. Brooks, how do you feel about the verdict? Nia stepped up to the microphone, heart pounding. I feel relieved. Justice was served today, not just for me, but for everyone Richard Gaines stole from. This was never about personal vendetta or corporate politics. It was about doing the right thing, even when it was hard. I'm grateful to the FBI, to the prosecutors, to everyone who believed the evidence and didn't let lies and accusations distract from the truth. What would you say to people who still believe the allegations about your relationship with Logan Pierce? Nia looked directly into the cameras. I'd say the jury just proved that those allegations were false. The evidence speaks for itself. I uncovered fraud because I'm good at my job. Logan Pierce hired me because he recognized my skills. Everything else is noise designed to distract from the real crime. And today, the truth won. The questions continued, but Nia felt lighter with each answer. The narrative was shifting. The story was no longer about scandal and romance. It was about courage, integrity, and accountability. After the press conference, Logan drove Nia and Marcus back to her apartment. Derek followed in a separate car, though the security protocols would be relaxed now that Richard was in custody. Inside her apartment, Nia sank onto the couch, suddenly exhausted. Logan sat beside her. You okay? I think so. It's strange. I've been so focused on the trial for so long, I don't know what to do now that it's over. You rest. You celebrate. You get back to your life. What life? Everything's been about this for months. Then you build a new one. Logan hesitated, then took her hand. Remember what you said before the trial? About talking after it was over? Nia's pulse quickened. Yeah. I'd like to have that conversation now, if you're ready. She looked at their joined hands, then up at his face. I'm ready. I need to be honest with you about something, Logan said. When I first got your text, when I sent that money, it was about Lily, about trying to do better than I did with her. But somewhere along the way, it stopped being about her and started being about you, about who you are, what you've been through, how hard you fight for the people you love. I hired you because you're brilliant, but I fought for you because I care about you, not as an employee, as someone who matters to me in a way I didn't expect and can't ignore anymore. Nia's breath caught. Logan, you don't have to say anything. I just needed you to know. The accusations, the rumors, none of it was true when they said it. But if I'm being honest, I've felt this way for weeks, maybe months. I just couldn't act on it while we were fighting Richard, while everything was so complicated. And now? Now Richard's going to prison. Now the truth is out. Now we can choose what comes next without worrying about how it looks or what people will say. Nia's heart was racing. What do you want to come next? I want to take you to dinner. Somewhere nice, somewhere we don't have to talk about lawsuits or fraud or any of it. I want to get to know you outside of crisis mode. I want to see if this thing between us is real or just adrenaline and proximity. And if it's real? Logan smiled. Then we figure it out. Together. Nia looked at him. This man who'd saved her with an act of kindness, who'd stood by her through hell, who looked at her like she was something precious. Fear whispered that getting involved with her boss was asking for trouble. But everything else in her heart screamed that this was right. Okay, she said. Dinner. Tomorrow night. Somewhere nice. Yeah? Yeah. Logan's smile was brilliant. He leaned in slowly, giving her time to pull away if she wanted. She didn't want to. When his lips met hers, soft and tentative and full of promise, Nia felt something inside her unlock. This wasn't gratitude, wasn't obligation. It was choice. Pure, simple choice to let herself feel something good for the first time in longer than she could remember. When they pulled apart, both breathless, Logan rested his forehead against hers. I've wanted to do that for so long. Me too, Naya admitted. Marcus chose that moment to let out a demanding cry from his bouncer. They both laughed, the tension breaking into something warm and comfortable. Logan stood and went to the baby, lifting him easily. Hey buddy, you hungry? Marcus grabbed Logan's nose, making them both laugh again. Naya watched them, her heart so full it hurt. 3 months ago, she'd been alone in a falling apart apartment, desperate and afraid. Now she had a job she loved, a home that felt safe, and a man holding her son like he was something precious. It wasn't the life she'd planned. It was better. Over the next few weeks, life settled into a new rhythm. Richard was sentenced to 22 years in federal prison, the maximum allowed under the sentencing guidelines. The other companies affected by his scheme filed civil suits to recover their stolen funds. Richard's assets were seized and liquidated, the money distributed to the victims. Nia returned to work at Pierce Biotech, but this time without the cloud of suspicion hanging over her. Her colleagues, seeing the verdict and understanding the truth, welcomed her fully into the team. She was promoted to senior analyst within a month, her salary adjusted to reflect her actual value to the company. The work was challenging and fulfilling, exactly what she'd hoped for when she'd first graduated with her degree. She and Logan dated carefully at first, conscious of the optics, making sure everyone at the company understood their relationship was separate from their professional roles. But as the weeks passed and no one raised concerns, they relaxed. They went to dinners and museums and took Marcus to the park on weekends. Logan taught Nia how to sail on the lake. She taught him how to cook something other than scrambled eggs. It was easy. Comfortable. Right. 3 months after the trial, Nia enrolled in a graduate program for advanced data analytics, taking classes online at night while Marcus slept. Logan supported her completely, adjusting her work schedule to accommodate her studies, celebrating every assignment she completed. 6 months after the trial, they moved in together. A decision made over breakfast on a Saturday morning when Marcus threw his cereal at Logan, and Logan just laughed and cleaned it up like it was the most natural thing in the world. You're good with him, Nia had said, watching. I love him, Logan replied simply. I love both of you. It was the first time either of them had said the words out loud. Nia felt them settle into her chest, warm and true. I love you too, she said. Both of us do. Logan kissed her, tasting like coffee and promise, and that was that. A year after the wrong number text that changed everything, Nia stood in the nursery of their shared penthouse, rocking Marcus to sleep. He was almost 2 now, talking in full sentences, running everywhere, filling their lives with chaos and joy. Through the open door, she could hear Logan in the living room talking on the phone about a new research initiative at the company. Her phone buzzed with a message from Terrence. Terrence. Saw the article about you in Forbes. From wrong number to right place, the analyst who took down corporate fraud. I'm proud of you, sis, Nia smiled and typed back. Nia, thanks, T. Life's pretty good these days. Terrence. You earned it. Give Marcus a hug from his uncle. Nia. Will do. She set the phone down and looked at her son, his eyelids drooping, his little hand clutching his blanket, the one with his name embroidered in elegant script. The blanket Logan had sent her what felt like a lifetime ago. Everything had changed because she'd hit the wrong number. Because Logan had chosen to answer. Because they'd both chosen, over and over, to show up for each other when it mattered. The fraud was exposed. The criminal was in prison. The lies were destroyed by truth. And Nia Brooks, once desperate and alone, had found something she'd stopped believing existed. A real partner, a real home, a real future. Logan appeared in the doorway, watching them with soft eyes. He asleep? Almost. Come to bed when you're ready. I'll wait up. I'll be there soon. He left, and Nia stood there a moment longer, Marcus's breathing evening out into sleep. She laid him gently in his crib, tucked the blanket around him, and whispered, We made it, baby. We're going to be okay. And for the first time in her entire life, she knew without doubt that it was true. She turned off the light and walked toward her future, leaving the fear and struggle behind where they belonged, in the past, where they could never touch her again.